The search for people swept away by the sudden and ferocious flash floods in Texas has reached its third day. The young girls staying in the summer camp would have been sleeping in cabins situated in a low-lying area just 200 meters from the Guadalupe River before more than a foot of rain fell in a couple of hours. The river burst its banks in the early hours of Friday morning. The death toll continues to rise, with at least 68 now confirmed to have died. 21 of those were children. And as the frantic search and rescue continues, many people are beginning to question why the authorities were so unprepared. Ria Chatterjee reports.
What the helicopter captures from afar, thousands faced up close. The force of the water ripped metal from bridges, so you can imagine its impact on people. Many were winched to safety, no doubt in shock, wondering if this was really happening to them. The flash flooding happened early morning on Friday, and whilst the lower water levels make searching physically safer, it's mentally grueling. At Camp Mystic, they're searching for the bodies of young girls. They would have been sleeping when the water started filling the cabin, barely time to run or swim. The waterline nearly reaches the ceiling.
I got to see firsthand many of the body bags, and it breaks my heart. And we didn't know. We know we get rains, we know the river rises, but nobody saw this coming.
10 minutes drive away at a boys' camp, the same level of destruction and mayhem. The camp's Facebook page says all the children are accounted for.
All of the campers in those cabins had to go up on the rafters, and they had to wait there until they could swim out. And my brother here, he had to swim out of his cabin.
The flood started getting bigger, and it was going up to, we had bunk beds in our cabins, and it was going up to the top bunk, and we had one choice, and we had to swim out of our cabins.
Oh no, Granny.
Officials say a month's worth of rain fell in a matter of hours.
Oh my God.
The Guadalupe River did the only thing it could do. But surely the authorities had more options, residents are prompting.
No warnings at all. They came hours later, which was the most devastating part. You know, we got the warnings on our phones hours later. The destruction had already been done before the warnings came out.
The National Weather Service is responsible for issuing warnings, and the initial alert to be weather aware went out on Thursday afternoon. The service is stretched thin, though, with long-standing staffing concerns. In May, 5 former directors of the service published an open letter warning of potential consequences to Trump's funding cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which works to understand and predict changes in climate and weather. Our worst nightmare, it said, is that weather forecast offices will be so understaffed that there'll be needless loss of life.
I don't know how much that was a factor in what happened in Texas this weekend. Pick your favorite football team, and now imagine that team has, instead of 11 players, has 8 players. They're going to lose. No matter how good they are, they can't do the job of the full team. And that's what's happening at NOAA. Is these are outstanding scientists, wonderful technicians, terrific policy folks, but if we don't have enough of them doing the job, then something falls off the table.
Donald Trump has announced a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, which will provide funds for emergency services as well as for individuals and public infrastructure. This time lapse shows just how quickly the river rose on Friday, swallowing the road and trees, just about anything in its path.
Earlier, I spoke to climate activist Dr Sweta Chakraborty, who was in New York. She was a climate spokesperson for Kamala Harris's US presidential campaign. Now, we know that some weather warnings were issued, so I began by asking her where things had gone wrong.
What happened in Texas is unique. It was lack of key personnel in local National Weather Service positions. It was the local community voting not to invest in community preparedness and upstream river gauges. Those were the types of things that would have allowed for more alert to the community to really prepare itself against this type of heavy flooding, which this area in Texas is really known for. But the local community really voted against it. Rather, resources were being directed towards border patrol, right? So it was not prioritizing real risk to community and being influenced by a lot of political rhetoric around where limited resources should be going. Those resources are being directed to the border and immigration as opposed to real risk to American citizens in this region of the United States, which is heavy flooding events, for example.
And the national context, the National Weather Service is, as a consequence, in your view, of the DOGE cuts and the political climate, your view is that the National Weather Service is currently understaffed?
The National Weather Service is already understaffed and it's already struggling with limited resources. So now when the federal government is going to slash even more of the budget, that is so critical, especially as climate change is amping up, right? So this is not when you start stripping resources from early detection of these types of natural disasters. They're going to increase in frequency and probability.
Kerr County, that part of central Texas, this is Trump country. And, you know, without wishing to be crass, do dead kids change the dial at all around the political discussion and Trump and MAGA climate skepticism? Does it change anything?
I hope so. This is the opportunity for those who are on the side of science. Anything related to evidence and data, this is our opportunity as scientists and communicators to point to the facts. The reality is that liberals, because they tend to happen to own more of the science and evidence currently in the United States, are not actually doing a great job at coming together and putting a message out, not nearly as fast as the Republicans and as the conservatives in the United States are. The conservatives in the United States are going to take advantage of this disaster, and they're going to point to a degraded National Weather Service and NOAA agency, and they're going to say that it wasn't working, and that's why this happened. So they're going to double down and say, this is why we are correct in defunding these key critical agencies. But that's not accurate at all. The reality is we need to put more investment into community preparedness, communication, upstream river gauges. These are the kinds of things that are going to save lives.
You used to advise Kamala Harris on climate. The Democrat message has clearly not resonated. The Republican message of jobs are more important than climate science has won. How are Democrats going to change their argument? Because it's not winning.
This is fair criticism. We learned our lesson the hard way, and we have to make science great again. It's actually a campaign that's really picking up steam in Europe. But that's ultimately what this is going to require, is to bring public trust and faith back into science and back into data, because ultimately that is what's going to win over the very real risks that are plaguing America and the rest of the world right now. And ultimately, these lives lost in Texas are human lives, and they could have been not necessarily prevented completely, because weather forecasting is still an inexact science, but we're better to be on the side of science than anything else. It's the best we've got, and we've got to invest more in it to get forecasting better and to ensure less lives are lost.
Dr. Chakraborty, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.